Hello, my name is Kathy Yamashita, and I'm going to use our media mashup assignment as a way to introduce you to the basics in Adobe Photoshop Elements. So I'm going to start with opening up Adobe Photoshop Elements. And the first window you'll see is one that says Organizer and Photo Editor. We're going to select Photo Editor. And this is the Adobe Elements introductory workspace. I'm on a trial, so I'm just going to get rid of that window. And so that we can take advantage of all of the functionality that we have in Adobe Photoshop Elements, we're going to move over to Expert, and here's our environment. Generally speaking, our tools are on the left-hand side. There are also some menus along the top. Oftentimes when we click on a tool, additional controls will show up here on the bottom. So I'm just going to get started, and I'm going to walk through all the steps that I would do to create my ad for my media mashup, and as we work through it, you'll learn a number of different skills. So I'm going to go to File, Open to begin with, and grab our Adobe image here. And what I'm going to concentrate here on is the shoe. So what I want to do is isolate this purple shoe. Now in Photoshop, we have a number of different ways to select elements, and what we want to do is isolate this shoe from the background. Before I even undertake this task, what I'm going to do is determine which area would be the easiest to select. And I can see a lot of similar tones around the outside, so it would be easier for me to select the outside than it would be to select the shoe itself. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come over to one of our selection tools, and this is a quick selection tool. I come down here and I'm actually going to select the magic wand. Its tolerance, or the amount of tone that it's going to gather around the point that I select, is about 32 pixels. I'm going to click here, and I got a pretty good surrounding of the shoe, but I want to add more. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, gather this bottom part, gather this end here. Also going to gather parts closer to the shoe. And I see that that's done a pretty good job of giving me most of the shoe, or most of the area around the shoe, excuse me. I'm now going to use my magnifying tool and come in here because I can see inside the laces there are some areas that I've forgotten. I'm going to grab my magic wand tool again and hold down Shift and select those white areas. So now I have selected actually everything except the shoe. Whoops, I've gone too far. Anytime I've gone too far, I can hold down Command on an Apple or Control on a PC and Z, and I'll move back one step. So that's exactly what I've done right now. Now I showed you about the zoom tool, and that allows me to zoom in. If I hold down the Option key, you'll notice that that plus in the middle of my magnifying glass is turned into a minus. So now I can zoom out. If I want the whole image in the window, if I hold down the Command or the Control button and click the 0, then I'll get back to full screen, which is what I want right here. Now there's still some areas here that haven't been selected along with the white. So now I'm going to choose the lasso tool, which is a manual selection tool. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and again, when I hold down the Shift key, I can add to a selection. You'll see the little plus sign beside the lasso. So I'm going to draw a circle around what I want to select. I'm going to continue drawing and select all of these areas here, and I think I've pretty well selected everything except for the shoes. And that was a much easier task than trying to select all of these different shades inside the purple. I'm now going to go to Select and slide down to Inverse, and now I have only the shoe and nothing else, which is exactly what I need. I'm now going to go over to Edit, slide down to Copy, and you'll notice the quick keys here are similar to the same quick keys you'd use in Microsoft Word. Command or Control C for copy. And then if we go into another file and we want to paste it somewhere, Command or Control V for paste. So I'm going to make my final destination file by going to File, New, and opening up a blank file. I want to make it letter size, so I'm going to make the width 11 inches. I'm going to make the height 8.5. And because I might want to print this up, right now it's at screen resolution, I'm going to give it about 200 pixels per inch. And I'm going to put my name up here because I believe in our Adobe course it asked us to put our name on the file. So there's my blank space. This is where I'm going to create my ad. I can now go up to Edit, Paste, or do Control or Command, and there's my shoe. It's also picked up a couple of other bits or details around the outside edge there. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool, make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm going to get rid of those extra lines. So now I have my shoe. And now I'm going to get my background. So I'm going to go back to File, Open, and this is a very pastoral classical landscape, so it's right here. I'm going to grab this image by going to Select All, Edit, Copy, come back to my blank slate of my shoe, and do an Edit, Paste. And what you're going to find is this is a very large image. So the image that I took off the internet is larger than my palette is, and I only have a section or a detail of this image. So I'm going to get my magnifying glass, hold down the Option key and back up. And then I'm going to go to Image, Transform, Free Transform. And now I can see how large the image is and how small my actual canvas is. So I'm going to take this and make it the same size as my canvas. I'm going to use my arrow keys to nudge it over just a little bit. Then when I like what I see, I'm going to hit the check mark and hit the Command 0 to get me my full screen. Now the question is, where did the shoe go? Over here in the layers, these layers sit one on top of each other. So if I pull the background layer down, my shoe has reappeared and I have my background. Now, in my layers, I also have active layers. Right now, I can affect only the background layer. I want to affect the shoe, so I'm going to click up here on layer 1, and if I want to, I can actually double click and put down shoe here and put down scene here, so I know which layer is which. I'm going to go up to shoe. I'm going to take this tool, which is my selection tool. I use it to move things around, and I'm going to actually put the shoe right about here. So it's going to be sitting on the ground right about there. And I'm fine with that. So I'm going to get my magnifying glass and zoom in. And you'll notice that when we get in closer, it's actually sitting on top of some rocks. And I would prefer that it sit behind those rocks. So what I'm going to do is grab my eraser tool. You can see I can pick a number of different brushes here on my eraser tool. I'm going to pick a smaller brush, but make its size, the amount of image that erases, a little bit bigger. And I'm actually just going to put this shoe behind the rocks by taking away where the rock is. So it looks like the shoe, I've gone a little bit too far, so I'm going to hold down Command Z to get rid of things. If I want to, I can go to opacity, slide it down a bit so the shoe looks transparent. I can now erase all the part of that shoe that's supposed to be behind the rocks. I believe there's actually another rock here that it should be behind. I might not choose to expose that whole rock. I'm just going to expose most of it. And so now this shoe is behind the rock, and I can bring my opacity back up. This shoe still looks a little bit like it's floating in space. So what I like to do after that is take the sponge tool, or what I see as a sponge tool, but I'm going to come down here to something called the burning tool, and I'm going to affect my midtones only, go back to my background, and make the area underneath the shoe a little bit darker so that it looks like it's in the shade, like it's casting a shadow. So I'm just going to make those areas a little bit darker so that the shoe looks a bit more like it belongs. If I also wanted to take the highlights and darken them down, I can do that a little bit, and it looks like the shoe belongs there a little bit more. The other thing I can do is go onto the shoe side and darken things down a little bit just behind the rock, so it looks like that there's a little bit of a shadow being cast behind the rock onto the shoe. And so now if I back up, the shoe really does look like it belongs there.